Good afternoon. Welcome to Improving Talks. Our presentation will begin in 2 minutes so we can give some folks some more time to arrive.
How's everybody doing?
Our presentation will begin in 1 minute. Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of Improving Talks. Before we begin, I'd like to call your attention to the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom client. So click on that, you'll get a Q&A window, ask your questions there, and your questions will be answered during the course of the presentation. The title of today's talk is Lead with Purpose, A Guide to Delegation. Today's speaker is Randall Dunnigan. Randall is a business agility consultant at Improving. He has over 9 years of experience helping small private companies to Fortune 500 companies to find and achieve success on their agile journeys. Randall's unique approach comes from his passion for positive change, belief in humor and fun as an essential learning tool, and insistence on practical results. Without further ado, here's Randall Dunnigan.
Thanks, Michael. Howdy, y'all. As Michael said, we're going to be talking about delegation today, but a little bit about me. During this call or during this talk, I would like you to just jump in whenever you want to ask questions and get clarity. I'd like this to be more interactive. Don't worry about time. If you have questions, I'd really like to discuss and talk about them. Another thing about me is that I've been ill for a bit. So I have a bad cough. So if you see me go on mute, I'm trying to save your ears. So please don't worry about that. So yeah, lead with purpose. A little bit about me. As Michael pointed out, I'm a business agility consultant. What does that mean? That means that companies who are struggling to communicate well, kind of getting in their own way, just not achieving what they think that they could achieve. I step in, I help them improve their processes, improve their communication channels, just help them work in a better way. I have a passion for that. It's kind of what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's what started me on this career. I believe that, we spend a lot of time at work. If I can help someone work, whoop, my slides went crazy. These aren't automatic transitions, I promise. I believe that if I can help somebody work in a better way, then I can have a positive impact on their lives. And so that's kind of why I do what I do. When I'm not at work, though, I'm a family man. I'm a husband, have a wonderful wife, Nicole. I have 2 wonderful kids. I'm a father as well. And I'm a veteran. I served in the Air Force for 6 years. What I do for fun, I like to make things. I'm very creative. So 3D printing, woodworking, stuff like that. I'm also a forever GM, which kind of gets into the format of today's talk. So we're going to do a little bit of pretend today. You are going to be, a person who has been seeking to achieve a leadership position, trying for that promotion. And I know you've been working hard here at Acme Core to reach that middle manager position. And I've got really good news for you. Your work has been noticed. Your achievements, everything that you've done has really shined through, and we wanted to reward you. So let me be the first to congratulate you on your promotion. Congratulations, you are now a middle manager at Acme Corporation. So what does this mean? Well, you get the new title, obviously. You can go ahead and put that on your signature. You can put it on your business cards, and tell everybody about it. Sing it to the world. But you also get more responsibility. And I know you're swamped. I know you've done a lot of work, and I know you've kind of been burning the candle at both ends. But we're going to need you to burn the candle at the secret third end now, because you got a lot more to do. I once had a manager that I adored back when I worked at Walters Kluwer that told me that achievement at work is never rewarded with less work. So you have achieved, and you should be proud of that. But it doesn't mean you get to take a break. So you're going to get more responsibility, more stuff to do. And along with that, you're going to have a lot more people relying on you. It's not just you anymore. You have folks that need you to perform in order for them to perform. So you're going to have a lot of people, backing you because your success is their success. So you just keep that in mind. There's one other thing that I did want to talk about. We get a little bit serious here for a second. Be careful about burnout. Taking on too much at once. A lot of people think of burnout as like a flash in the pan, but it's not. When you burn out, usually recovery could take years. Usually takes at least a month. So it's not just like you get really tired for a weekend, right? It's a real detrimental effect. We talked earlier about having long impact on people's lives because you spend a lot of time at work. You're not any different when you're at work, right? Than when you're at home. You still have emotional and mental strains on yourself. So burnout can really affect you and cause some real trauma. So we don't want that. Don't burn out, even though you have much more to do. Another thing that's important to remember is you can't prioritize your way out of this one. Now, I'm not saying prioritization is bad. Prioritization is wonderful. You should know what your most important tasks are, and your second most important, and focus. Maintain focus and knock those things out one at a time. That's all good, but the wheels of progress are still turning, right? And we need you to get your stuff done. Like I said, people are relying on you, so do keep that in mind. You don't want to be an example of the Peter Principle. So for those of you who might not know, the Peter Principle is the idea that in any organization, people keep getting promoted, right? You do well in your job, it gets recognized, like you've been recognized, and you get promoted. When do you stop getting promoted? Well, if the same theory holds, you stop getting promoted when you stop doing well. So the Peter Principle states that people keep getting promoted in an organization until they stop performing. So you don't want to be that example, right? We wish you success, and your success is the business's success, and a lot of people are counting on you. So good luck. Well, it sounds a little bleak, and it might sound like there's no way out, but there is a way out. There's ways that you can work through this, and I'm going to help you out. I'm here for you. One of my favorite quotes from Anthea Turner on delegation is, the first rule of management is delegation. You don't try and do everything yourself because you can't. And you really need to internalize that. It can be hard, especially high performers, to recognize that they can't do everything. And a lot of us, myself included, try to do it anyway, right? We live in denial and we try to do it anyway. But that's not a service to you or your people. That's doing a disservice to everybody involved, right? if you do many things, you're often not doing any one thing very well. So we'd want to cut that back. Recognize that you can't do everything yourself. So you're going to need to delegate. Part of the reason why you want to delegate is to reduce risks, right? You're doing a lot yourself. You're taking on a lot of risk, and a lot of times you that have that common saying, what if you get hit by a bus? I don't like that one. I think it's a bit violent. I like to say, what if you win the lottery, right? So what if you won the lottery tomorrow? Well, you wouldn't have to go back to work. You probably wouldn't go back to work. So in order to reduce the lottery risk, you're going to want to share some of that load. Make sure that you're not the only one who can do what you're doing, or the linchpin. And delegation is an excellent way to do that. You also want to remove the bottleneck. So if you tip a glass upside down, like suddenly, glass full of water, all the water is going to spill out. But if you've ever turned a soda bottle upside down, it just kind of glugs its way through. That's because that opening, only so much can go through that opening, right? So that's the bottleneck. And right now, you're the bottleneck. You only have so much capacity. Only so much stuff can go through you. So, we want to try and ultimately remove that bottleneck. And the way you do that is by sharing some of that load as well. So these are a couple of reasons why it's a good thing to delegate. You also want to create autonomous and empowered employees. You don't do that by hoarding everything yourself, right? You're trying to create the leaders of the future. And you do that by giving them the skills to be successful when they ultimately step into the position you're at. You're going to do great. So you're going to probably move up to middle manager 2. And at that point, somebody's going to have to fill middle manager 1, right? Somebody's going to have to come back behind and sit where you're sitting. And that person needs to have requisite skills to be able to do what you do. So all of that to say, you did get promoted for a reason. You have certain skills that no one else has, and that value is something that we'd want to recognize. What you also want to recognize is that not everything you do is rocket surgery, right? Like there are some things that other people can do. We run into this situation a lot with cross-functional teams trying to share work. And what I always tell them, and what I'll tell you, is sure, there are some things that only you can do. There's some things that that only you or your peers can have the experience to handle. But there are so many things that you can share that almost anyone can do. So it's a good idea to identify those. So how do we identify those? Here, I've picked up a couple of tricks along the way, and I'm going to share them with you. Forgive me, the cough thing. One of the things that, oh, I almost forgot. I have a picture of Chuck Norris. Fun fact about Chuck Norris, he was once exposed to coronavirus, and coronavirus had to be quarantined for 2 weeks after being exposed to Chuck Norris. So it's a Chuck Norris joke for you. They're not all dead. I also used to know Chuck Norris, so I'll have my LinkedIn information down below. So if you want that story, it's a worthwhile story. Okay, so much to do, so little time. How do we decide? How do we figure out which things we can delegate? Well, there are some tricks that I picked up along the way. One of them from one of my favorite podcasts, the No Nonsense Agile podcast. Check it out; it's really cool. But they had a visitor on, Murray and Shane interviewed Ryan Lentz. Ryan Lentz works for Amazon as a product director. And he talks about at Amazon, they have this concept of one-way versus two-way doors. And I just love this idea. So I want to share it with you guys. A one-way door is a door in which once you pass through it, it is very difficult for you to pass back through it. Or may be impossible for you to pass through it, but back through it, right? The impact is such that, once the decision is made, once that thing is done, going back reversing it is very difficult. A two-way door, in contrast, obviously, means that going back through is easy. It's either easily reversible or easily mitigated, right? Like the impact is much less severe and long lasting. So you have that concept of one-way versus two-way doors. Obviously, two-way doors might be a good opportunity for delegation. Things that, if they didn't go the right way, would not have as adverse an impact as other things. They might still be very, very important. We'll talk about the importance of importance later, but they might be very, very important, but they're not as risky, so to speak. Another one that I stole off of, because my entire career is just stealing ideas off of people. Blake McMillan is one of our trainers here at Improving. We have world-class trainers, and Blake McMillan is no exception to that. But he once in training mentioned something about scraped knees versus broken bones. And it stuck with me because it's awesome. And me as a parent, I very much identify with the concept of scraped knees versus broken bones. The idea being that if they fall down, if something goes wrong, right, are they going to scrape their knee? A minor injury, something easily recoverable, a lesson learned, and enough pain to remember, but it's not going to damage them permanently. Or are they going to break a bone? So my daughter is zoomy. She loves to go fast. Anything that can make her go fast, she will do. And she loves hills, like we all did when we were kids, right? I remember vividly her roller skating down our hill. Our street is kind of like set on a plane. And it goes all the way down until it meets with like a fairly busy street. So I have before, and when she was first learning how to rollerblade, I've seen this in action, and I think every parent has had this feeling before, right? When they first start going, right? And it's like, okay, this is fine. They're going a little bit fast. Then you hit that gray area where you're kind of deciding whether or not to intervene and ask them to pull over or whatever. And then they'll eventually go past that when you start freaking out. Well, that feeling is similar to what you would want to do when you're trying to decide on what to delegate or not, right? Think about what, with your teams, with your employees, what can I give them that might scrape their knee if it doesn't go well, especially if they're new to this. And let's keep all the broken bone things to myself, right? We want to set them up for success and not for failure. Another thing to look for when you're looking for delegation things is things that are opportunities for growth, things that speak to people's goals, things that speak to people's strengths. Those are things that you'd want to share, right? Anything that can help grow your people. Always remember, one of your primary duties as a leader is to mentor and grow the leaders of the future. And I don't care who you are. It's a moral duty. If it's not in your actual job description, it's a moral duty for you to grow and mentor the leaders of the future. And I would go as far as to say, even if you're not in a leadership position, you are, and you can be and likely are a leader in some way. And when you embrace that, always look back, always figure out how you can lift up other people. So looking for these opportunities of growth, things that you do usually that might be good for somebody that works for you to learn or understand or know, things that will open doors for them in the future. This is what good leaders do. Another opportunity would be like high risk things, anything that like you do alone, that should be a major red flag. In fact, within your employees and other team members, if you know that like, oh, only Jeff does that because Jeff's the only one who knows how to do that, you want to try and share that information. That's not a delegation thing. That's just good sense, right? You want to try and share that knowledge, try and get other people to be able to do it because it's a very high risk. Always remember, win the lottery. You don't want somebody winning the lottery and taking the whole company down because they left. Another thing is anything that's reoccurring, anything that happens frequently, often, that might be a good opportunity for delegation. But one of the things, and I'm going to talk more about this later, but it does warrant repeating. If you're going to do it, do it. If you're going to delegate, you need to actually delegate. You need to actually trust your people to get things done. And we'll talk a little bit about specifically how to go about doing that. But the important thing is you got to let go. You got to be able to hand those things off. So when you're making that choice on what to do or what to delegate, always remember that this is something that you're going to give to somebody, because you really want people to own those things that you're giving them. So you've made some decisions on what to delegate, but you're still kind of unclear. I would say first you need to just observe what you're doing. One of the things that I can say with full confidence is that if you haven't sat down and observed your work and actually like annotated and written down and taken notes on like what you do on a day-to-day basis, you do not know everything that you do. I can say that with full confidence. This is something that even if you're not a delegator, even if you're not going to delegate to someone, even if you're not a leader, anything like that, you still would get benefit out of doing this activity. So the first step is finding your cadence. Like, what is your cadence? Like Scrum teams will usually have like a 2-week cadence on a sprint, right? So members of a Scrum team might be 2 weeks. It might be 1 day if you have a pretty regular schedule. It might be 1 week. Whatever that cadence is, figure it out. Figure out the endpoints, the bookends of what you're going to measure, and during that time, observe and record every item you can. This is really hard for me. I have a really hard time like keeping up with stuff like that. But any little bit will help. So I recommend using a whiteboard or a whiteboarding tool, because it'll allow you to like shift stuff around and place things into categories and stuff. But what you're looking for is opportunities for that delegation, right? The stuff before. You're looking for those two-way doors, for those scrape knees, right? For those opportunities for growth. Those are the things that you're looking for. Also, like if you're going to do this activity, it's a good idea to like mark the items that kind of aren't bringing any value. Because again, if you've never done this activity before, just like I promise you don't know what you do from a day-to-day basis, I also promise you do some worthless stuff all day. There's some waste in there. It's unlikely that you're living a fully efficient work life, right? There's going to be some waste. So this is a good activity for you to just try. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it's like those cameras at the self-checkout line, right? It might not be pretty, but they give you a lot to work on. So yeah, take some time, recognize what you're doing, and start to categorize them and find those opportunities that you can seek out to share. But okay, so this is great. We have some ideas on how to choose these things, but you're still doing all the deciding yourself. So maybe you want to collaborate a little bit more, right? You want an activity that you can work on with others. And I have a great idea of what you can use. So Management 3.0, they came out with Delegation Poker. If you haven't seen this, it's a wonderful tool. It's a lot of fun. Every time I have a organization or a team that's trying to kind of like find out where their leadership fits with them and sort of like how to share that workload or empower their teams or drive delegation, I will do this every time because it's a great activity. So there are these cards that they have with the Delegation Poker. It's a lot like planning poker if you've ever done that, but it relies on the Delphi method, pioneered by the Rand Corporation back in the Cold War, to figure out the impacts of thermonuclear war, global thermonuclear war. So really complex stuff. This is no less complex than that. So we're going to steal their idea to come at a slightly less complex problem, which is how do we delegate what to delegate? So the idea is you have these this sort of spectrum of delegation. On the far left, you have manager. That's the one with the M on their hat and the really, really creepy blue eyes. That's the manager. So on the far left, you'll have tell, right? That's the far left manager extreme of delegation. There's no delegation here. You're just going to tell them what to do, right? That's where we usually default. We want to have as little of that as possible. On the far right, you have delegate, right? Manager's not even in the picture. You have the delightful employee there, much less creepy looking than the manager one. And if you fully delegate, that means that you are not involved. You have handed that problem over. That person's running with it. And then you start to work your way in. So you have sell versus acquire. So when you sell, you're still making the decision, but you're trying to bring them on board. You're trying to like convince them of your decision, right? And inquire, they're still going to make the decision on the other end of the spectrum. They're going to make the decision, but you're going to, ask questions. You're going to get to know like what the decision is. And then you move in a little bit more. Consulting is when you're still ultimately going to make the decision, but you're seeking consultation from the team. Yeah, actively trying to fold their ideas and thoughts in. A lot of people think they're doing three think they're doing three, but they're really doing two. I would avoid that. If you're going to consult, really try to absorb that advice from your team. And then number 5, you're going to advise. Team's still going to decide ultimately, or your employees are going to decide ultimately, but you are going to advise them, right? You're going to give them information they need. And of course, you meet in the middle on agree, where you both kind of agree together. So you would have all these cards. So you would have a set of 1 to 7, and everybody else would have a set of 1 to 7. And you would present a task, something that you do, like we have to decide on a messaging system. So who is going to decide on the messaging system? Who's going to take that up? Who's going to do the research? Who's going to figure it out? Is it going to be you guys, the team, or the employee? Or is it going to be me as the manager? And sort of where does that land? And then you would secretly, without showing everybody, choose a card. Once everybody's chosen their card, you reveal it. One of the things that I see every single time I do this activity with a team is that I apologize again, is that the team members will always lean to the lower numbers, always lean left. They always think that they're not allowed to, or don't have permission to, or don't have the skills to do things that, are being brought up, right? They always lean a lot heavier to the left, and managers will always lean heavier to the right. Because they understand, they came from that world. They know what their people do. They know their people more than anyone else, right? So they understand what they can and can't do. And plus, you as a middle manager, you probably don't want to do this work anyway. So you're probably going to want to shuffle some of this off. So that's always like a big aha moment with teams that I face when I do this activity is it's like, oh, I thought I wasn't allowed to do the change requests. And it's like, no, you can definitely do the change requests. Please do the change requests. I don't want to do them anymore. That kind of thing. And there's a little added activity that you can do if you've gotten a list of all the things. So you come together, you put your heads together, and it's a delegation poker matrix. So you kind of do this activity over and over for a whole list of tasks that are needed to do. Maybe these are tasks that you've identified as potential things to delegate. Maybe you just list all the tasks that are required to get a product out the door or get a job done. But you would do that as an activity with the team, put them all on one side, and then one at a time go through and do delegation poker. Maybe choose some, maybe pinpoint some and pick them out to see where people think. I guarantee doing this activity will open eyes. It's going to reveal assumptions. It's going to make the implicit explicit. It's going to make the implicit ideas and assumptions and thoughts and preconceptions that you carry, it's going to bring them out to the open. Oh, yeah. So, for instance, fire Kevin, right? And it's not, that's probably not something we'd want to do. We wouldn't want to delegate that down, right? That's something that you might need to do. But at the bottom, you have hire Kevin's replacement. Most teams think that the process of hiring is fully on leadership, whereas a lot of leaders will freely invite consultation from the teams. And I've been in organizations where the teams make final decisions on hiring other team members. So, doing this will help expose that misunderstanding between them. And getting on the same page is always a good idea. So delegation poker, it's an excellent activity. Okay, so we've got some ideas. And we do want to move forward and start letting some of our work go and start to delegate. But how do you actually go about doing that? Because there is a right way and there is a wrong way to do it. And unfortunately, for many people, it's a very unnatural thing to do. So you'd want to avoid some things. First of all, invest in your people. When you do delegate, you need to make sure you're setting people up for success. So training, just time spent walking them through these things. You want to support them in as much as you can. Part of that is very clear communication of expectations, right? Part of that setting them up for success. You have to clearly communicate what your expectations are. Because if you screw that up, if you follow assumptions or assume that people know these things, you're probably gonna reach a point where you're unpleasantly surprised, and you don't want that. When you do delegate, also need to delegate the authority, right? Give them the authority to speak on your behalf. If that means talking to people ahead of time, being like, hey, so-and-so is doing this for me, they're making the decision, take the time, make sure they're set up for success. You don't want to send people out on a mission where they have absolutely no authority. My job is mostly based on influence, and sometimes I'm not given the authority I need to make the changes that help those organizations as a business agility consultant, and it's tough. We don't want to do that to our people, right? We want to make sure that going in, they have the authority to get their jobs done. Also be patient. Lots of times it's people doing this for the first time, people unsure of their ability, people unsure of their authority, people testing the waters. Be patient. This goes back to parenting for me as well. Having kids try something for the first time, that first step, jumping into the pool for the first time, or cooking on a grill for the first time, like, they're trepidatious. They understand the dangers, and you want to be patient with that. Keep those lines of communication open, be supportive, be encouraging, but don't rush, right? That might also be feed into how you pull in those ideas for delegation. Also remember, it's not life and death. If it is life and death, it possibly could be. If it is life and death, it's probably not a good idea to delegate. But chances are it's not life or death. And so, try and relax, try and let it go. I would sing that, but I'm pretty sure that's against the Geneva Convention for me to sing. Just let it go, right? Like, once you've given it to somebody, you need them to accept full ownership of what you've given them. In order to have that impact, to gain that ownership, you need to step out. You need to let them do that work. I'm not saying abandon them, support, but it can be very difficult for folks, and I'm the biggest offender of this. It can be very difficult for folks to hand something off fully to someone else and let them go with it, because they're probably going to go in a different direction than you. And they might even go in a direction that you probably don't think is going to be very successful, Remember those scraped knees. Skint. I'm from the South. Sorry, y'all. Remember those scraped knees and broken bones. And if they're just going to scrape their knee, maybe let them give it a shot. They might surprise you. And also, if not, they're going to learn something, and we can always iterate on it, right? You can always come back and take those lessons learned and have them fuel future success, right? It doesn't all have to be done right or perfect the first time, and it definitely doesn't have to be done your way the first time. Don't forget to praise successes. Call it out. This is something that your teammates might have done for the first time, something that's definitely in many cases above their pay grade, so to speak. They deserve to be, to have their moment in the sun. And it's part of your job as a leader to take the time to give people their moment in the sun, to let them realize that the effort that they're putting in and what they're doing for you is appreciated, especially when they're doing stuff that was on your plate already, right? So praise the successes and accept the failures. Again, lessons learned, right? Provide guidance, help them through it. One of the things that's really important to remember is that you can delegate the task, you can delegate the work. Most of the time, only in extreme circumstances is there exceptions to this, you can't delegate the accountability. If it was your job at first, absolutely nobody is going to be okay with you saying, yeah, but I gave it to Kevin and he really botched it, right? Like that's not going to fly, right? You should have got it done. You made a bad choice, and now we're living with the consequences. So do be careful. Even when you do delegate, remember that you're still going to be accountable. So all of that is kind of a complex tapestry, but it's easier than you think, I think. So I think we're okay. I think you have what you need to be successful. You got this, right? I believe in you. I think you're going to do okay. Don't forget, no one is an island. You're going to need help. You can't do all of this alone. And even if you could, you probably shouldn't. When you do delegate, don't cop out. Don't pretend to delegate, because then you're still doing the work. It's not helping you out any. And we have this sense in the 3D modeling world that there's the idea of the uncanny valley, and that's cartoon images or images, cartoon 3D models are adorable until they reach a point where they're kind of too close to looking real, but not quite right. And then they just drop off this cliff of acceptability where people get enraged about them. It's called the uncanny valley. I feel like we have the uncanny valley of that responsibility sharing, right? People can understand when they're being pandered or where they're being kind of misled along the lines of what they're being expected to do, or the amounts of trust that's being placed in them, and they don't like it. So don't cop out. If you're gonna delegate, right? Let them have that ownership and support them. Don't forget that you can't delegate accountability. You're still going to be responsible for the outcomes, so be careful. Don't forget about those two-way doors and those scraped knees, and try out delegation poker. Management 3.0 has some cool stuff, and delegation poker is something I use all the time. So I think it's a very valuable tool. Try it out. Here's some contact information for me. Look me up on LinkedIn. You can ask me about how I know Chuck Norris if you want, or just hang out and talk, ask questions. I have my email there as well. I like doing this stuff. I like talking about how to improve communication, how to improve your practices. I'm kind of a nerd. I do it in my free time. So uh, go ahead and get some free consulting out of me. At some point, I might have to redirect you to our sales folks if you get too much, but you can get a little bit from me. So reach out if you have some questions, if you have something you just want to think through or talk about, reach out. Down there at the bottom is improving. That's our website. Um, you know, come hang out. I'm in the Dallas office myself, but we have offices all over. Uh, uh, all of our offices, I think, but especially in the Dallas office, we have user groups very frequently. I'd be very surprised if we didn't have a user group that appealed to you, but we love visitors. So, come check us out, come visit. Yeah, it was really nice hanging out with you all today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Randall. We did have a comment from Glenn. Delegation of recurring responsibilities comes with the opportunity to review the delegate's approach and mentor on what went well, what can be improved for the next time since it's recurring.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a really good insight, Glenn. I like that. That's a really good idea. It's that iterative thing that I talked about, right? You're able to do better the next time and the next time and the next time, and really set them up for success. Yeah, I'm all for iteration, Glenn. That's 100%. Anyone else?
And then Tim enjoyed your Chuck Norris joke, as did we all.
Yeah. Yeah, I found like I was looking for a thumbs up image to throw into my presentation, and Chuck was on there, so I had to put him in there, and it threw me back to when those jokes were relevant. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it.
That was good. Well, Randall, it was an awesome presentation. Thank you for that. Really enjoyed it, learned a lot from it. And again, if you have any questions after this, please reach out to Randall and through one of those channels, and Randall will be happy to talk with you about it. So, Proving Talks occur every week on Wednesdays at noon Central Time. They are absolutely, completely, and utterly free. The schedule is posted on improving.com. Next week, Improving Principal Consultant Glenn Gordon will be here to talk about building successful agile teams from the inside and the outside. Again, Randall, thank you so much for your talk. It was very good. And also, I want to thank everybody out there for attending. We love doing these talks. We do them for you. And as long as you keep showing up, we're going to keep doing them. So hope to see you next week. Until then, have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the week, and a great weekend.
Bye, y'all.